It's December the 18th, 2020, and here we are back with December with Deuteronomy, and it's chapter 10 today. At that time, the Lord said to me, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and come up to me on the mountain. Also make a wooden chest. I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Then you were to put them in the chest. So I made the ark out of acacia wood and chiseled out 2 stone tablets like the first ones. And I went up on the mountain with the 2 tablets in my hands. The Lord wrote on these tablets what he had written before, the 10 commandments he had proclaimed to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly. And the Lord gave them to me. Then I came back down the mountain and put the tablets in the ark I had made, as the Lord commanded me, and they are there now. The Israelites traveled from the wells of the Jachanites to Mosera. There Aaron died and was buried, and Eleazar his son succeeded him as priest. From there they traveled to Gud-Godah and on to Jotbatha, a land with streams of water. At that time, the Lord set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of the covenant of the Lord, to stand before the Lord to minister and to pronounce blessings in his name, as they still do today. That is why the Levites have no share or inheritance among their brothers. The Lord is their inheritance, as the Lord your God told them. Now I had stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, as I did the first time. And the Lord listened to me at this time also. It was not his will to destroy you. Go, the Lord said to me, and lead the people on their way, so that they may enter and possess the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. And now, O Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you, but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, and to observe the Lord's commands and decrees that I'm giving you today for your own good. To the Lord your God belong the heavens, even the highest heavens, the earth and everything in it. Yet the Lord set his affection on your forefathers and loved them, and he chose you, their descendants, above all the nations, as it is today. Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer. And for the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the alien, giving him food and clothing. And you are to love those who are aliens, for you yourselves were aliens in Egypt. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. He is your praise. He is your God, who performed for you those great and awesome wonders you saw with your own eyes. Your forefathers who went down into Egypt were 70 in all. And now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. Amen. Now, I've often pointed out along the way how important names are in the Bible. Well, the same could well be said about numbers. And we certainly see that here in this chapter. So, for example, in verses 1 to 11, looking back to the incident that is referred to in chapter 9 and verse 17, remember how the golden calf incident reminds Moses about how rebellious, how stiff-necked these people they were and they are. And he's warning them not to be like that. And in that incident, when Moses came down from the mountain with the 2 tablets of stone with the 10 commandments on them, verse 17, so I took the 2 tablets and threw them out of my hands, breaking them to pieces before your eyes. It's like that covenant relationship that God had established with Israel was broken in a million different pieces, just as those 2 clay tablets were. That was God's response to their idolatry and their worship of the golden calf. But we come now into chapter 10, and we have some numbers which tell the story. First of all, 2. That's in verse 1. The 2 stone tablets. And what was written on them? Verse 4, 10. The 10 commandments. Written on them again. That's the point. By the Lord. He did it again. And so the covenant was breached by their unfaithfulness, by their idolatry. Those 2 tablets were destroyed. But the covenant was not abolished. And now it is properly restored. Because here's the point of the whole incident that he's making. At the end of verse 10, it was not his will to destroy you. And here's another amazing number for you in this chapter. How long was Moses on the mountain to receive that message? It's like the message that sums up everything that God is saying to his people then and even now. 40 days and 40 nights, we're told. And then we come to the second part of the chapter, verses 12 to 22. Because you see, everything there that we've spoken about, that was then, some time ago in their history. That was then, but this is now. Verse 12. And now, O Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you? God has been so good. He's been so gracious. He could have not only destroyed those tablets, he could have destroyed this people. In fact, he was so angry at one stage, it looked like he was going to do it, but he didn't. He relented. He had mercy. So what is to be our response to such a God? What is the heart of this covenant relationship with the Lord as far as the people are concerned? Well, I would say it's summed up in one word that's repeated in verse 12 at the beginning of this section and verse 21, I think it is. Verse 20. Verse 12 and verse 20. Fear. Fear the Lord your God. Verse 20. Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. And in this section, verses 12 to 21, begins with fear, ends with fear. What does it mean to fear the Lord? Now, that's not a popular word today. At one stage, it was a great honor to say to someone, oh, he's a God-fearing man or she's a God-fearing woman. I don't know what we would make of that today. In fact, we're being told that we mustn't fear God. And that's a terrible thing. God wouldn't want us to be afraid. Well, there is a sense in which that's true, if we understand correctly what that means. But there's also another sense, a very deep sense, in which we must and we will fear God. And within this section, there's one thing after another that tells us what is contained, what is involved in this wonderful thing called the fear of the Lord. One thing that's involved, which is very interesting, is verse 16, where Moses says, circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer. Remember, they had circumcision for their bodies, for the external part of them, but it was always God's design and desire that the external should speak to the internal. And that's not only something that's said here in the Old Covenant. Go to Romans 2 and 29, and you'll see exactly the same thought there in the New Testament, in the book of Romans. And there's a final number here. It's in verse 22. Your forefathers who went down into Egypt were 70 in all. Relatively small tribe. And now the Lord your God has made you as numerous as the stars in the sky. In other words, a number that we do not know and we could not calculate. There's another book in the Bible which is very interested in and concerned with numbers, and that's the book of Revelation, right at the end. And in in Revelation chapter 7, there's a very famous number there where it speaks of the 144,000. Verse 4, then I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. Now, there's been tremendous controversy about this. I think this is like the perfect number. 12 times 12,000. And this is the perfect number of all God's chosen people, that he knows who they are. He even knows the number of them perfectly. He knows that. Of course, we don't. And then verse 9 in Revelation 7, after this I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count. I think that's the same group of people. It's talking about God's people, his chosen ones. And yet now, see, not from the perfect vantage point that God has, where he can number them down to the last number, but now just a vast multitude, a great multitude that no one can count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and in front of the Lamb. It's the same group. It's God's people, just seen from different perspectives. There's an old hymn that says, or that goes like this: when the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there, the old hymn says. And the question to you today is, will you be in that number?